No, I was down. I was with it in the hospital, and there's so much flu and stuff in there that I think I picked up a little bug.
Okay.
No, we're not ready yet. We've got to talk a little bit yet. Huh? How is my hair? Every hair straight? I better go and brush it again. I think I better go and have a look and see. No. Joel, you think you're the only pebble on the beach? Just a minute, where'd I put it? Do knock mine down. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. When did I first come to Rorketon? I homesteaded in here in 1920, in the fall. And I moved in with my father onto the homestead in the spring of 1921. We were about 18 miles out. Then I actually moved right into the, what do I call it, the village, the town, the city of Rorketon, in 1945 when we started a trucking business into Winnipeg. Does that answer your question?
Was it hard life?
Well, it depends on what you call a hard life. One person says it's hard, and another fellow says, well, it wasn't bad. But we had our own problems. I don't suppose you'd be interested in any of the problems we had, would you? Our biggest problem we had when we moved in, there was no roads. The neighbors were miles and miles apart. We had no buildings. We had to start from scratch. Oh, yeah. All the logs. I don't suppose, well, you're too young to ever see a log house put in here, aren't you? Whereabouts do you live? Well, we were fairly fortunate where we were. It wasn't too desperate far to where there was some nice spruce. And we were able to cut these spruce logs. And that was a winter of, really deep snow. And we moved an old steam engine in east of Crane River that we put 8 horses on. And 8 horses wasn't enough, so we put 12 on it. And we moved that away over in the bush on the south side of the Indian Reserve. And then we had to haul these logs in there through this deep snow. Go and take the lumber off the sawmill, tailing we called it at that time. Throw our own slabs, haul our own stuff home. And this is the way we got our house. Anything else?
Were there a number of people building houses like
at that time?
Yeah.
Well, we did have a bee there one day. And that's one thing that the first settlers were really good at. If you wanted to build a house or a barn, you just told them that you was going to build it on this certain day. And, well, those people were just out of this world. They always turned out to give you a hand. And your big problem was there, we used to call the Duffdale the corners, which I suppose will be Dutch to you people, but there'd be only maybe 2 or 3 and the whole gang could do it. And then when you got up near the top, well, it was lots of fun to see some of these fellows trying to walk up there. And you get up with, say, 10, 12, 15, 16 feet, and all you got in your hand is an axe, and you walk across a 6-inch log 20 or 30 feet. There was only just the odd person could do it. But but still the people, they made sure that you always had a log up there waiting for you. If you had to do 2 or 3 corners yourself, well, they made up for it some other way. We walked. Well, I think you folks have been up here long enough to know that we got muskegs to take last spring, how much water we had. Well, this was common a way back. We had no ditches, no roads, and sometimes it was a lot easier to walk to a place than it was to take a team. I remember when we first went in on the homestead, it was 3 miles to go across to where we was holding Sunday school, and it was 13 miles to go around it. And I recall, this would be about the first or second year that I was married, and my wife, she wasn't very big then, and she's got a great big sister. Need I tell you any more? Anyway, we walked across this time to this Sunday school, and my wife jumped on my back, and away I went. And I come back, and I wanted to carry my big sister-in-law across, and no way, shape, or form could I get her to jump on my back, because I fully intended when I got in the center that I was going to fall backwards. This is just one of the things that we took for granted. But anyway, I got out in the center, and you've heard about these floating bogs, and I got out there and I started to shake, and this whole thing started to all the way around for 30, 40, 50 feet, and she said, "Oh, don't." I've often heard about people walking on these, but I never thought I would do it. So, okay, this is some of the way. We had horses. We had oxen. As a matter of fact, I had a team of bulls that I drove. Yeah.
How did the farmers get their crops to market?
There wasn't any crop for start. You always used what you had. Oh, well, my wife still makes her own bread. At that time? Oh, no. They had a flour mill over at Sefton, and I recall I had after we got so we was raising some crop, I had a friend come from Killarney with a truck, and we took several loads of wheat over to Sefton and got it ground into flour, and brought it back. We let some of the neighbors have some of this flour. And we always made sure we had enough to do a year or a couple of years, because this flour, for a start, it had to be aged a bit or it wasn't so good. My wife could tell you about how stringy it could get sometimes, and after all, you had to just experiment till you got the right way to mix it. The coming of the train? Well, I just wasn't in here when the train came in first, but I know that after the train had been coming in a while, I think the greatest help of all was to the kids that never saw a train in their lives. And we always had some really wonderful train men on. They used to let the kids get in the cars, and they could go around the Y, and they'd back them into the station again, ready to go out the next morning. And this was, I think, one of the greatest things that ever happened, because the kids was always so happy about it. And we had such lovely trained men that they didn't deny those kids that privilege.
How many times a week did the train come in those days?
Say that again?
How many times a week did the train come in?
Well, for a start, it came in once, and after they got the track settled down a little bit, maybe, a couple times a week.
And now it doesn't come at all, eh?
Beg your pardon?
How many times does it come now?
I think it comes when it feels like it now.
What are some other big events in Rorketon?
Listen, I'm a little bit deaf, so you talk a little louder, eh?
What are some other events, the big events in Rorketon?
The big events? Oh, we've had lots of big events in Rorketon. A place this size, why wouldn't we? We had, the time we got the first school over here, they didn't have a school in Rorketon. They used to have to go to Freedale. That is where their school was. And this school that came in here was a school that was built up at Macobber, which is about 15 miles north and west. The people moved out from there, and then they tore that school down, board by board, and it was rebuilt out here at Rorketon. And the school ground was a donation from the first man that was in this town, in other words, Mr. Rourke. And by the way, I don't know whether you know it or not, but Rorketon was named after two people. There was Mr. Rourke and Mr. Hamilton. And they combined the two names together, so we have Rorketon. I guess maybe I forgot to tell you some of this other, but we got the curling rink, which we're very proud of. This was, what will I say, pretty well all donated, or free labor. I recall that we hauled the lumber from Waterhen. There was no road up there at that time, and I got the people that sawed it. They floated it down to Tootsade on the lake, and we picked it up there and brought it down here. And it was dried out, and then it was planed by Tony Bolesky. And then when it came time to put it up, we had this big B, and up it went, just like that. So actually, it didn't cost us so much for a start. It's cost us a lot since. But I think the greatest event of all that we had in this town, something that I'm really proud of, is the second year of the war. The people around here all got together. We have Ukrainians, we have Polish, we have Frenchmen, we have Finns, we have English, we have Irish, we have Scotch, and we have Germans, and oh yeah, and we even got one Negro. Was that they all got together, and there was no more Ukrainians, no more Finns, no more English. It was all, we were just good Canadians. And I think this is the greatest thing that ever happened in this town. And I mean that. And by the way, this Negro that we're talking about, he is the grandfather, or was the grandfather of Harry Jerome, the great runner. Yeah. This is something that I think that, well, and by the way, this here, Howard, that was his man's name. I was in France in, I believe it was the summer of 1917, and I saw our friend Mr. Howard win the long-distance running championship in France. I didn't know who he was at that time, but okay. And he had cups to prove that he had done this. And I thought, well, okay, here's our neighbor, and he's the grandfather of Harry Jerome. And my mother was the midwife for some of their children. So, okay, we know these people so very well.
How about people that live so far away from the health center? Was there ever a health center, a health station?
Well, distance in here didn't make too much of a difference at any time. Did you say the health part?
A health center, like the nurse come in, very good.
Well, for a start, I recall we moved a house in here from out near Adeline, which is 2 or 3 miles out here. And we had that for a nursing station, and the Red Cross was very good. They sent us in a residing nurse. And that poor nurse, or nurses that one followed another, and I believe that each one have tried to outdo the other one in being nice to us. But the nurses, the first nurse I recall, she used to ground a dog team, oxen, what do you call those things, a snow plane? Did you ever see them? Did you ever see one? Never seen a snow plane? Well, what we used to make out of the snow plane, don't let me forget, I got to come back to it, but the snow plane was the only motor that we could get that would really take it was a Model A, a motor out of a Model A, and you put this on some skids, or some skis rather, 2 at the back, and you had a great big cage around it so that you couldn't run into the propeller. And this thing sat out there And it worked like an airplane, only it pushed in place of pulling. It was cold. Oof, 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 was it cold. You take the wind from that 30, 40 miles an hour, and if you happened to hit a bare spot, you were there. You were there. And I remember George Laycock was the first one that had one here, and he used to haul the nurse around places that he couldn't get. Had to go maybe way across Lake Manitoba for the poor nurse. And to go there, and what they used to use in that was they'd start a blowtorch up to keep your feet from freezing. It was really tough going. We had the oxen, which they were nice to ride behind, especially if they had green grass. And I'm not being funny, because I drove oxen many times. And I heard Mrs. Rourke talk about when they came in here first, this here grade that's just east of town here. Well, there was no grade there, and they used to go on south in the bush, and that water used to be up till the water come in the wagon box. Now, this is not spoofing anybody. It was so high because there was no ditches for it to get away, and it just sort of stuck around. And poor Mrs. Rourke would say about her putting her feet up on the dash and the oxen with their tail up. And she could really tell us some stories about riding behind the oxen. Our nurse used to go horseback, and then eventually, after we got a few roads, they got a car and traveled around with that. But our nurses, listen, this country owes them so much. 2 of our children was brought into this world by a Red Cross nurse. And you're talking a little bit too low for me.
So they were only Red Cross nurses?
They were?
Red Cross nurses?
They were Red Cross nurses for a start, and I believe that eventually they got down to a public health nurse, they called it. But they still used the same building we had down there. They still got around pretty well the same way. In fact, I believe that the last nurse we had, or the second last nurse we had, she had a Model A car, coupe. And she wasn't supposed to use that, but bless her old heart, she was just too good-hearted. And I think she thought it was a lot better to go with her own car than it was to go with some of these other ways. And I've even saw the nurse walk for miles to get to a person's place. This is something, we're proud of those women that came in here. These are Red Cross nurses. And we never did have a doctor here. Never had a doctor here.
I guess without a hotel, people didn't see very much, so they had
The hotel, I believe the hotel came in here, let's say the early 30s or the middle 30s. But up until that time, well, we didn't have any need of one. We always had enough, what do you call them, blind pigs? Kicking around to supply the people's needs pretty good. And you don't mind me telling an odd story or two, do you? Well, we have a person that's still living, so I'm not going to mention their names in here. But I guess he had a blind pig. Blind in both eyes, because if you drank the stuff he had, well, you would be blind too. But anyway, this one time he was coming into town with a load of homebrew, I guess you call it. Maybe you call it wine. And he looks behind and he sees this car, or this team coming on a cutter, just as tight as it could come. And I guess likely he'd have an old Saskatoon bush for his extra gas, because we didn't step on the gas then. We used an extra switch or something. So he tucked this here Saskatoon bush on and started to hoist the bottles out one by one. And at that time, the police didn't have a souped-up car. They had 2 horsepower. And but anyway, the fellow wasn't caught that time because there was no evidence. And another time, I was up, let's say up the Finn Road a piece. I won't say just how far because I wouldn't like to embarrass anybody that's kicking around here, And anyway, I put my horse in this person's barn. I was looking for some cattle. And we started the house. and he had two paths. The one went here and the other went here. So I started to go to the kitchen, and no way would that man let me go to the kitchen. He gave me a bunt in the shoulder, and okay, I went to the front door. So the lady put me up a real good meal, and naturally, I couldn't go away without saying thank you to this woman. So I started to go into the kitchen, and the man caught me by the sleeve, but I wasn't to go there. But anyway, I just went on, and when I got out there, they had a real good fire going, and there was a bunch of copper pipes running around that house, and I just wonder what those copper pipes were for. And I wouldn't like to embarrass anybody that's around here, you know, to mention the names.
What was Saturday nights like in Rorketon?
But we never had any Saturday nights in here. We don't have Saturday in this town. We used to have Friday nights. This is the night the train came in. And a long time ago, they always brought all the fish from all around the country in to catch the train out for the next morning. And we'd have 15, 20, 30 teams of horses would be put in the livery barn. And we had, at that time, I think it was either 11 or 13 stores in here. You may not believe it now, but we did have, and it was business enough that everybody made a good living. And the merchants, they were very good-hearted. They'd stay open till the last team come in so they could get their groceries, because a lot of those people traveled 25, 30, and 40 miles to bring those fish in. And the horses over in the livery barn, well, once in a while the horses would get unruly. But also I heard one time about two great big men got unruly, and one fellow used a neck yoke on the other one. And he hit this one fellow over the head with a neck yoke and dented his skull in. And I don't know, they must have been made of real tough stuff, because the fellow never went to the doctor, and he carried that dent till he died in day, and he lived to a ripe old age.
What about the church life? Were there any churches, and who were some of the first places?
I just don't recall exactly when they built that Orthodox church that's down in the south end of town. I just can't exactly recall the time it was, but I know that the United Church didn't have a church of their own at that time. They used to hold services in the schoolhouse. That's the same one that was brought in from Macrober. And then this Orthodox, the people, they got together and they invited the United Church to go down and hold service in their church. And this, well, this is what I believe that Christianity is about, that you should share. Then they got this Greek church over across the way from us, and eventually they brought in the Roman Catholic Church, which was brought in from Magnets, about 10 miles from here. So we're well fixed for churches in the town, but at the present time, in fact, I think there's only once that we ever had a residing priest in this town. In the summertime, the United Church people used to send in a student, and he would be in here for the summer. And then he went away, and unless somebody took over in here, they didn't have church till the following year when he came in. And this is one thing that we kept going for many, many years. When the student wasn't in, we took over and carried it till spring.
Do you think the people are better off today than they were then in 1920?
You want an honest answer? You do? You may not believe me. I don't think they are. Why? I believe that we had more time for one another. We helped one another more. Nobody was in such a hurry that they couldn't take time to give you a hand. Sure, we got more money now. We were married in 1922, and how I would have loved to give my wife the things we got in the house today when we were raising our family. But we managed. We could buy a pair of overalls for $1. The same overalls today will cost you $20. We could buy a pound of sugar for a nickel. How much today? It was 72 cents a pound here last fall. I don't know what it is now because, after all, we're using 15-cent sugar because we looked ahead and we had it on hand. And before that, we was using 7-cent sugar. So we started to look ahead, and we don't always figure out right. But in 1929, I could buy a brand new Pontiac for $1,100. And today, that same Pontiac is over $7,000. And there's so many things like this that I just wonder if we're any better off today. We got more money, yeah. We're not any happier because we were really happy back in those times. I don't say we're not happy now, but actually I don't think we are any better off. You don't believe that, maybe? Well, you tell me. You just tell me where we're any better off. Sure, we had to work hard back in those times. Well, I seen us go out and dig snake root. You know what snake root is? You don't? Well, it's Seneca root. Well, it was snake root to everybody, and we dug snake root to buy sugar, to buy tea, to buy flour. I even trapped skunks. So don't tell me that I don't know what it is to be hard up. But we were happy to think at that time that we could make our own living without going to the government for gimme, 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 gimme. And now everybody's looking for a handout. Even our young fellow here behind the picture. He's looking for a government grant to help him out. And when we wanted, and look how ready he gets in the face, eh? He said he had a good sense of humor, so it's okay. No, but this is one thing that we're very proud about. That we never asked for a handout. If we wanted to make a road across the country, we went out and we made a road across so that we could get ourselves. And now, well, nobody can do anything for themselves. They got to ask for a handout, ask for a grant. I don't think this is right. We had more get up and go then.
Do you wish that the old times would come back?
Well, we never left them.
Yes, they have, in a way. But you honestly wish that they'd come back like...
No, I don't. There's some things, yes, I would. For instance, now, you said you had a good sense of humor. So, okay, you take it way back. We never had to have a medical examination to tell whether we were talking to a boy or a girl. And today you do. I recall we had a young fella come in here a couple of years ago, and here I am crippled up. I was going with 2 canes, and I wasn't sure whether it was a boy or a girl, so the only way I could tell, I tried to catch him and see. But honestly, I wouldn't like to go back to it. Even for all, we used to have some really wonderful times back in the hard times because everybody was the same. There was nobody had any more money than anyone else. And for entertainment, which I think you skipped, we used to have house parties. We could go to, we'll say, your house this week. We generally had them Friday nights. And we used to have some really wonderful times. You'd take some sandwiches and Johnny. Well, for entertainment, we used to have and really enjoy our house parties. We'd go to your house tonight, and well, you'd take some cookies, and somebody else would take some pie, and somebody else would maybe take an ice cream freezer. We'd make our own ice cream, and it'd be genuine ice cream because then we didn't have ice milk; it was ice cream. We used to play tricks, and I recall one time. Well, I think you both know this particular lady that I'm talking about. We had put a quarter in a saucer, and if she could stick her tongue out far enough to lick this quarter off, she got the quarter. And, of course, she had to be blindfolded to do it. And always, you know, we had something else for her to lick. And this lady, she had a great long tongue. Not that long, but pretty near. So here we put this saucer up to her, and in place of being the quarter, she got a real good tongue full of salt. And, okay, you could fancy the fun we had there. No fun for her, but little things like this. And that's the one thing, we never had any liquor. And people today think they've got to have liquor to have a good time. But the people in town used to go out to these house parties, and they'd bring their own sandwiches and whatever it was. And finally they started to bring in booze. And once the booze started, we stopped having house parties. And they had the halls. We had the Finn Hall up north of us. We had all at Magnet. We had all at Meadow Portage, another hall at Toots Aid. And I recall one time there was a great big fellow there. Oh, he was a really fine gentleman. Because he was big, he didn't throw his weight around. And we had a couple young fellows around here. One fellow never was a party that he didn't make a fight. And he and his brother figured they were going to have some fun with this great big fella. So this one night, they was badgering him quite a bit. So he just caught them and he cracked their heads together, bang, and like that, one hand each way, and that sort of fixed them. We wish that fellow had come in many ones before.
What's some of the biggest problems you encountered?
Our biggest problems from the start was, I believe, was clearing land. And this is a problem that everybody had. We had no, you might say, no tractors at that time. Everything had to be done by hand. And we used horses, we used oxen, we used horses and oxen together, and we used oxen and horses together. But our biggest problem with that was the black flies, mosquitoes, and bulldogs. And I've seen the poor horses not once, but hundreds and hundreds of times every day of the week. The flies would be on them so bad that you could rub your hand over them and your hand would be pure blood. And the black flies used to get in the horses' ears, up their breasts, around their eyes, until I've seen some of the horses, their eyes would swell so bad that they couldn't see. And we used to use axle grease or whatever we could get on them. And for mosquitoes, I've seen the mosquitoes so thick that we'd go for some hay, and they'd get in your eyes so bad you'd have to drop the hay down, brush them out of your eyes, and pick the hay up and run until you could get a smudge made. And the smudge used to keep them away for a while. And then we had the problems of, after we got our ground broken up, of getting it thrashed, because at that time there was very few thrash machines around. And I recall in 1928 there was no thrash machine out in this part of the district, and we had bought a little 20-inch hand-feed machine. And we came out, and I don't think there was anybody here had more than one stack of grain. This seems funny to you folks today, but this is the fact. It's in 1928, and I could name over so many we thrashed for in that year, and they just have one stack of grain. This was their summer's work. And now, you see, everybody's got their land all broken up, the good crops. We got good roads. We got telephones. We got the hydro. Listen, I forgot to mention, that's one of the greatest things that ever came in here. We have TV. And I don't know, I think if you look around this house, we got everything in this house you got in the city. So, our problems, we've surmounted them. We've overcome them. Until today, we can look back, possibly with a little pleasure on some of these hard times we had, to think that we survived it and came through, and we made so many friends in this part of the country. In fact, no matter where we go, this is one of the things that I think God has blessed us with, that is being able to make friends and keep them. We're just happy about this.
What do you miss most about the early days of Rorketon?
I think I pretty well answered that one before. I said I missed the times when, you know, you could tell whether it was a boy or a girl. But this is one of the things I do miss. And another thing, listen, I miss a lot of our old friends. So many friends we made way back in those hard times that were really good friends. They've passed on. But we've made new friends. And actually, everything wasn't that bad back there. We were happy back there then. Not saying we're not happy now, but there was something about being able to go into a raw piece of land as nature had made it, and to be able to build a home, to start from scratch or start with nothing, and make a living out of that land, raise your family, and let's say be respected in our neighborhood. This is something I'm very proud of, very happy about. Come on, come on.
I'll just hand it over.
Just sit there and say what's...
Well, like, even if just your hand is showing.
What is this flat from memory?
You know, just so that your hand...
You can't pick it up that far, can you? Can you?
Well, it's better if she's closer.
What does this flat... Oh, you have to turn
Oh, wait, she hasn't got it on yet.
Yes, he does. Turn it so that you...
Sit down here. Come on.
Turn it so that they...
That's better, yeah. No.
Now turn it so that he can see it. What does this plaque represent?
He hasn't got it on there yet.
Does he?
Yeah.
Have you? This here? Well, I'll hold it so that you can't see. This here is commemorating when we got the dial telephone into Rorketon. And we had the honor and the privilege of making the first long-distance telephone call to anywhere in Canada, talk to who we would, and as long as we liked, at no charge. And I thought this was a great honor because to bestow upon us, as we are, I believe, the oldest subscribers of the telephone in Rorketon.
What did you call?
Well, we have a son in Toronto, and the telephone company called them the day before and said there'd be a call go through at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So it was down in the new office, you know, which is down in the corner down here. And we were the first ones in there. So I believe we still got the ribbon where we cut the ribbon to go in there. Oh, we was highly honored that day. And we're quite happy about it. And anyway, I dialed this, and I think this is supposed to be where I'm dialing. But you tell me, how can a person dial like that and not look where you're putting your fingers? I can't. But you see, they go to such trouble to make everything look good, but they neglect some of these little wee things that anybody can see. But anyway, we called our son in Toronto, and I talked for a minute or two and told him this call was being made with the courtesy of the Manitoba telephone system. And hold the ribbon up, will you? There is the ribbon that we cut to officially open the telephone booth, the telephone station. It's faded out now, but don't forget, what was this, in 1968, so it's got reason to fade. But anyway, we talked to our son, and they've got a couple telephones in the house, and their kids wanted to stay home from school so they could hear Grandpa and Grandma on the telephone, but no way. They taped it anyway. I talked a minute or two, and then I turned it over to my wife, and I thought she wasn't going to get finished. And the person there says, you can talk just as long as you like. And I thought that was very good of the telephone company. We're very happy that the telephone company gave us this courtesy call. And Our telephone was in here when I came in first, but it was all long distance, and we had long distance charges here for at least 30 or maybe 35 years. No matter where you called, you paid long distance charges. And then we got a local telephone system here, and boys, I used to love to talk to our operators. We've had some really wonderful ones. And I can see the smile on our person's face there that he knows all about some of this. And then it wasn't long before pretty near everybody in the country had a telephone. And then they give us this here dial phone. And now, I think that some of them got on there to visit. Your boyfriend ever call you up and forget to get off? Eh? Right? Yeah? You're on TV now, don't you? Look up and look at. we wish that you'd just get off the right time and place of keeping us. I'd like to use that telephone once in a while.
I don't think I would.